Walker, and welcome to Closet Conversations. Today I'm going to be reviewing Season 1, Episode 4 of the Netflix series GirlBoss. Now, GirlBoss series was based on the book by the same name, written by Sophia Amoruso, who is the founder of Nasty Gal, also known as Nasty Gal Vintage, one of the most fascinating success stories to come out of the eBay environment. And she went on to create a company that had hundreds of millions of dollars in revenues, and she started on eBay, one woman, at the age of 23. So we have a lot to learn from her. So anyway, I'm reviewing the series, giving you my thoughts and basically the top takeaways from each episode. And so that's what we're doing here. So this one is all about customer service, and it drives home the points in pretty funny ways. But the series starts out with Lady Shopper 99 is what we know this woman to be, as the woman who had purchased a vintage dress from Nasty Gal to wear to her wedding. And we see her at her wedding, and then they do some flashbacks, but we see the bride at the wedding, and she's in an alternate wedding gown. I mean, this is the most average looking wedding gown you've ever seen, so clearly she's upset. And she's fussing and crying, and people don't understand why she's upset, and all the bridesmaids are wondering what's going on. And so she's like, I want the other dress, and it's her special day, and she's really upset that she doesn't have it. And we don't know what it looks like at this point, but it's got to be better than what she has on, because it's pretty bad. This is the kind of wedding dress she's wearing, this like you wouldn't even want to take in a consignment shop. But anyway, she says, she's very unhappy. She's like, I'm going to tear that Nasty Gal apart when all this is over with. So you're like, woof, she is not happy. So the next scene you see, it's a flashback 7 days prior, and you see Sophie at the art school. She's looking at student IDs and talking to one of the students, and she's mumbling as she looks on her eBay store because someone's wanting to get a refund on a dress. And she's like, what does she mean, discoloration? I know that dress was perfect. And it's one of these issues where, okay, so somebody wants a refund. They're claiming that something was damaged upon receipt, and she knows that it wasn't sent out that way, and she has to make a decision what she's going to do about that. And those are decisions we make all day long as resellers, whether we're on eBay or Poshmark or anywhere else. I mean, we've got to make decisions on customer service. So she was like, I see myself in her, man. How many times have I had somebody want to return something where you just know that like something's up, and you're just like, ugh, but you got to kind of do the right thing. So she is mumbling, and she's like, I know that dress was perfect when I shipped it, and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, so she's there, and the art student invites her to dinner with his mother, and she basically says, I got to deal with this whole wedding dress thing. So, I've got to focus on that. And then he says, well, if you change your mind, let us know, and here's the address. So that segment ends, and then the next thing we see her in her apartment, and the dress has been mailed back to her. A couple of days has passed, and she's examining it, and of course she sees that looks like somebody spilled something on it. It doesn't look like it's faded. It just looks like it's something's had an accident on it. She's like, there's a note inside, and the woman basically says, I'm busy planning my wedding and where I'm going to live, but she says, when things calm down, I'm going to give you a scathing review. And she's freaking out because she's just started on eBay, and as an eBay seller, your review is everything, especially as a new seller. And she's like, oh my gosh, she's freaking out. She's like, I just started this thing. And then she tells her friend, this situation is not about being right or her being a liar. She says, but I know what I'm going to do to handle this. She says, I'm going to promise her I'll have it back to her on her wedding day with plenty of lead time, and that she'll get the stain out. So she promises her that without actually knowing if she can get the stain out, because at this point she doesn't know what is in there, but she's taking a leap of faith. So she promises her that. And so yeah, so she decided she would promise to get it back to her. So anyway, the next scene cuts and she's with her friends and she's watching the OC. Now I never watched the OC even when it was out. Even though I was around then, I never watched it, and I just know it existed. I never saw one episode, and so she is watching the OC with her friends, and it's apparently the big one of the one of these important episodes, and so she I think where a character named Marissa gets in a car wreck. And so you see this scene where this blonde gentleman or actor is carrying her like a limp rag in his arms from this car wreck, and they're playing the song Hallelujah. It's really, really like deep and depressing and dark. And so while this is going on, Sophia's phone rings, and so she has to get up and take the call, and it's Lady Shopper 99. So of course the woman's calling her right in the middle of like the most important show ever, and so you can hear Sophie in the background saying, "I'm glad you still want the dress," and that yes, you only hear half the conversation. She goes, "Yes, sometimes discolorations can be difficult to see in certain light," and then she goes, "Yes, of course I'll have my light bulbs looked at." And she goes, "Absolutely, you're right." And so you hear her saying all this stuff, and it's just it's just so funny because there's really, what else can she say, right? So anyway, so she comes back and to sit with her friends, and she says, "I cannot believe I had a work call during the most significant TV event of my lifetime." And so pretty funny. So anyway, so apparently that was a big episode on the OC. So anyway, so we see her back at the art school, and the guy is saying, "We really want you to come to my house for dinner tonight and hang out with my mom." And she's like, "I've really got to take care of this wedding dress situation. I've got to prioritize that. That's my focus tonight." So this is like Friday night, and the wedding is the next day. And he says, "Well, if you change your mind, here's the address." So so you see her then at the dry cleaners, and she's picking up the dress that she had dropped off, and he's able to have gotten the stain out. However, all the beads came off the dress, like most of the beads, and so she was very shocked to be handed a whole bag of beads. I mean, there must have been hundreds of beads in this bag, and so she didn't, she just, one thing leads to another. Like, all of this is about running out of time. So she's like, "Oh my gosh." So she gets the dress back, she gets the beads back, and she goes back to her apartment, and she's in a big hurry because she was trying to get the delivery person to change their time to pick it up that night when she was done, and the delivery service is like, "We don't have pickups after 6 o'clock." And so she's freaking out because she's got to get it to this woman for her wedding day. So what happens is she organizes a 7 a.m. Saturday morning pickup of the dress. And so that's that. She's not happy about it, but she organizes that. And so then you see her very, very mindfully and very focused, must have been hours, and she's sewing very delicately and very perfectly every one of these beads back on. So she does it. When she does the final tie of the knot, she looks really, really pleased with herself and very satisfied that she had fixed it and repaired it and gotten it back to shape. Plus it was, the stain was out. So you see her packing it up in this beautiful black box with beautiful tissue paper, and she writes this handwritten note on it, and for your special day, blah blah blah, very personal, and gets it all organized for the delivery person. So then you see her look in her refrigerator, and she doesn't have any food. And so then she's like thinking in this moment, this is interesting. Like, she's not concerned with food. Like, she's too busy doing whatever she's doing. It's not that she didn't have any money to buy food, because we know she's selling on eBay, but it's not a priority. So she didn't have a stocked kitchen, and so she decides to take this young man up on his offer for dinner because there's no food in her apartment. And so we see her driving at night to this house. We don't know how far away it is from where she lives because they don't give you a clue. And so she goes in, and then she just has this lovely, lovely dinner with the mother and her gay son and herself, and they're just very close and very bonded, and they're like two peas in a pod, or as thick as thieves, that kind of thing. So you can see her just sort of kind of watching them and kind of admiring this really close relationship that they have. And so finally they ask her about her mother and her father, and she's really hesitant, and she just basically says, my mom's not around, and I don't really talk to my dad right now, and I don't want to tell him about my eBay business because I don't want to get criticized. But she says, I'll tell him about it when I'm doing better with it and when I can like buy a house or something. So the mother comes over and just gives her this really big, big, lovely hug, and you can just see how she doesn't have something like that. She doesn't have the warmth of a loving mother, and she doesn't have the warmth of a loving type father. And she just eats it up. She just kind of melts in this woman's arms. So it's a quite lovely scene. So anyway, after that really poignant moment, they just start partying. And so they're drinking and they're dancing and they're just having a crazy time, and they're up all night and they're eating ice cream and just, having a good time. And then, they're just up for hours. And then the next scene, you see it's 7 a.m. and the delivery person is knocking on her door. And at the very time that's happening, she's like waking up and she's like, oh my gosh, what time is it? What time is it? And they're like, and so you realize, she goes, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to be, what am I doing here? Why are y'all being so nice to me? I wasn't supposed to be here. So she rushes out, she rushes to her home, and because she knows she's got to get this dress to Marin, wherever Marin is from San Francisco, and drive over a bridge, and she doesn't like bridges. So, which is the reason she didn't take it the night before when they made that clear in the series. So anyway, so she grabs the dress. She's not dressed well because she still has on like the robe from having spent the night on the couch. And she gets in her car and she's in a rush and she's driving and driving. And then the car like runs out of gas, of course. And she's just moaning and groaning and, like what else can happen, right? And all of this to save her feedback, right? And so the car runs out of gas and you see her running to go to the bridge and just trying to run across the bridge. And she just can't bring herself to do it. And so finally she, and she's carrying the dress just like they were carrying this Marissa character at the OC series. And they're playing that song Hallelujah. And she's carrying the dress, like, and it's all very dreadful because, like, she's like at this point, like, thinking, "There's no way I'm going to make this wedding. There's just no way." And so she kind of stands on the precipice of going across the bridge because she has a fear of heights and a fear of earthquakes. And so finally, she forces herself to go over the bridge, and she just kind of starts screaming, like a warrior, and then she just does it, and she's running across the bridge, and of course now she's got a hernia, and so this is very painful for her, and she gets to the other side of the bridge, and she's just about to collapse, legs on her knees, and but somehow, some way, she gets a taxi, and they take her to the wedding, and it's like minutes before the wedding, and she's got this dress, and she's all disheveled, and she's can't find the entryway to the wedding, and doors are locked, and there's hedges, and she's climbing over brick walls and throwing the dress around. Of course, it's in plastic, so it's protected. So finally, she rushes in, and she's like, "Lady Shopper 99, I'm here with your dress." And like the whole wedding party is seated, and they're like walking out, and so Lady Shopper 99 is just like, "You made it. You're here." And she doesn't really say anything. But she gives her the dress, and then the the husband to be like comes and he's like, well, what's the holdup? And she goes, I have to change dress. He goes, well, what's wrong with the one you've got on? And of course, you see them all arguing with each other and all of that. And then everyone's arguing. And so she's like, I got to go. And as she's leaving, she sees the mother drinking Diet Coke on her way out. And we knew that Diet Coke was what the dry cleaner said had spilled on the dress. And so that was pretty funny. So she grabs a bottle of champagne out of from the wedding table and goes home. And then she goes back to the house where she had dinner, and so she brings them the champagne and returns the robe and all that. And they said, well, how was it? What did she say? And did she like the dress? And she's like, I don't know. We'll see. And then the woman who'd given her a big hug said, I'm so proud of you regardless. And so gave her a big, big hug. And, so she was acknowledging her effort and how much effort she went through to kind of solve the situation, which was a nice, lovely touch. So the next scene is Sophia looking at her computer at her eBay store, and it shows where Lady Shopper 99 gave her feedback, and it says, we'll buy again from this seller. And so it ends on a very good note. And in the end, all those efforts are rewarded. She gets her positive feedback, and she didn't get any negative feedback. But, there's a couple lessons here. And one of the things that I thought was interesting is that when her decision to go to that dinner that night was a really bad decision. And it was a decision made of immaturity because she knew how important it was to make sure that that dress was set, right? And so she felt like she had done everything she could do, right, to prepare the dress. Everything was set. But then she left, but she wasn't prepared herself. She allowed herself to get drunk. She allowed herself to party and to lose. And she forgot. She literally forgot what was happening the next day and got all caught up in that. And so that really was a bad decision. And it's so interesting because she had made all this effort. She'd gone through all this trouble to get this dress fixed. But in the 11th hour, like the captain of the Titanic, she just sort of had really bad judgment. And, it's just a lack of maturity. And the fact that she doesn't keep her refrigerator stocked with food shows she's really not focused on taking care of herself in a full way yet, right? And it's not for lack of funds because we know she's making money selling on eBay. So she's just that girl, and she's just not yet at that place of maturity where she is taking care of herself and is making sure her business is handled and making sure all that was taken care of. Because I can guarantee you, if that was me, I would not have gone out and partied that night because there's so much riding on it. And the thing that was so interesting is right where it said Lady Shopper 99, the positive feedback, it showed the price of the dress, $1,200. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money now. It's certainly a lot more money then in 2006. But $1,200 sale, you're not gonna risk that. I mean, she couldn't control the fact that it got returned and somebody spilled Coke on it. She jumped through all these hoops to make sure it was back the way it was, which are all the right things to do. But that minute that she decided to not see it all the way through, I mean, that was that lack of judgment right there, mixed in with all the other good judgment that she has. So, that's an interesting point because, we've all done it. I know I have, where you're all like concerned about something and you're making sure that it's all taken care of, and then like you just have like a brain freeze, like your brain you just freeze on something and you don't see the whole picture and something happens. But so yeah, what's our takeaway? This is the customer service episode. Number 1, feedback is very important as a seller. It's very critical to building your online relationships and online selling. Absolutely number 1 priority. Number 2, if there's a situation, you have to take care of it, and it is not about who's right. So it is a no-win situation to go down the blame game. And as a seller, I don't think you have a choice but to make it right. You have really no choice. So if you look at the bigger picture, you think about someone as a repeat customer, and it really is just the cost of doing business. And all the jobs I ever had in retail, they could have cared less if somebody returned something. They just did not care. I mean, it's built in. They know there's shrinkage. They know that things are going to happen. It's just all part of the plan. And it's just built in. And I think the fact that because we're independent sellers, we take it so personally, and maybe we're not good money managers, or maybe we're living off all this money and not holding any aside to make sure the sale has gone through. That's where all the pain comes from, because you need the money. It's not their fault. Like if they paid and you spent the money, or you were counting on the money, that's really not the fault of the buyer. I mean, so many times when I worked at retail, like one example was working at Bloomingdale's at the Beverly Center. They basically said, "We don't care what condition it's in. We don't care anything. Just take it back, give them a refund, and get them out of the store." And I mean, I remember once somebody brought back a swimsuit with sand in it, sand all in it, and they're like, "Oh yeah, well that's and it smelled like smelled like suntan lotion." They're like, "Yeah, I bought it that way," and you're like, "I'm pretty sure it wasn't didn't have sand in it and filled with suntan oil when you bought it from Bloomingdale's." But the manager's like, "Just take it back, just take it back," And so the bigger stores, the bigger chains, they understand all that, and they're always looking at the bigger picture. In the long run, it's just better to deal with those very few instances, because in the grand scheme of things, it really is a tiny part of the business, and it is for me as a seller. It's a very, very minuscule amount of things that ever have a problem or come back or need to be returned. Is so tiny that you just deal with it and you move on. So the other big point, yes, you take care of it. Third point is, is it all of that effort is necessary and will pay off, because you're basically taking care of your business. You're making it right, and there's a lot of satisfaction in that, and they show that several times. Like, they really make the point where the look on her face and the satisfaction she has, this character Sophia, of sewing all those beads back on, that whole job well done, and when she packaged it up, I mean, it was a beautiful thing. The mother at the end saying how proud she was of all her efforts, even though they didn't know what the outcome was. I mean, that's a beautiful thing. And so taking pride in your work and taking pride as a seller, I think, is a huge lesson, and it's something that shows. I think another big point is personal touches pay off. The fact that she packaged this dress in the most beautiful box I've ever seen, beautiful tissue paper, wrapped beautifully, and put that handwritten note in there. I mean, that is really special. And I had a Southern mother, and so the whole note writing thing got drilled into me at a very young age. Thank you notes, acknowledgement notes, congratulatory notes. Like, you're always supposed to write a handwritten note, was the thing, had to be by hand. And so she'd like check in with me. "Did you thank your grandfather for the Christmas money?" And I'm like, "Not yet. You need to write it. You need to write it." Um, so yeah, the handwritten note is a beautiful touch, and the packaging was just wonderful. So those are very important points as well. And so in the end, all that offer did pay off, and she got her positive feedback, and she completed a $1,200 sale. And that is a big number then, and it's a even bigger number now. And we'd all like to be making $1,200 sales, but that's what it takes. I mean, I think what does it take to complete a $1,200 sale, right? It takes an effort. It takes a lot of effort. She made that dress look like it was $1,200 or more. She gave her the service level of someone spending $1,200 or more. I mean, she was talking to her on the phone. She was sending her email. She was making sure it was taken care of, and she did not get hung up on the fact that that woman may have caused the spot on her own. And because it's interesting, because they could have easily, for themselves, taken that dress to the cleaners and gotten it cleaned if indeed they were the one who spilled the Coca-Cola on it. But they didn't. They sent it back to her. So, they didn't do that on their own, and they could have. But she did all the right things. And it's a really important episode. And the customer service aspect of what we do is just huge, because you don't know how many people saw her in that dress, photographed, telling her friends. You don't know the reach of good service, and you never really will. But the word of mouth is the most powerful way people talk about your business. They tell people, they refer people, and that's a beautiful thing. So that's it. That was episode number 4, season 1 for GirlBoss. So I have this petition on change.org to bring back GirlBoss for season number 2. If you'd like to sign it, there's a link in my Instagram page on the link tree directly to the petition, and you could sign it. If you leave a comment on the petition, it is something that I can tweet out on social media. I'd love for you to, share the idea of this with other people, because as resellers, this is a very powerful story. And all of these things that Sophia, the character Sophia, does in GirlBoss are spot on. They are perfectly placed aspects of how to run and grow a multi-million-dollar business. And so we all need to be reminded of that every single day. So there we go. So if you like this podcast, hey, give it a 5-star, a little rating, tell people about it, subscribe if you have just found it by accident. Go ahead and subscribe. That'd be great. And if you need to be in touch with me, I'm on Instagram as JennieGirl's Closet, and that's it. This is Jennie Walker with Closet Conversations, and I look forward to having you with me on a future episode.